Before we start the session, I will introduce the panelists and moderator for the session. The moderator for the session is Reena Suri. Reena is the Executive Director of Indian Smart Grid Forum, involved in many activities around India on distribution utilities, forums, and associated stuff. We will have Reena moderate this session. Thanks to Reena here. The panelists include Abhishek Ranjan from BRPL. Abhishek Ranjan is Vice President of Power and Energy Sector in BRPL. He's a leader and a progressive thinker when it comes to all the alternate technologies that are being connected to distribution utilities. The next panelist we have is Mr. Anil Dsouza. Anil is Deputy General Manager in BESCOM, which is Bangalore Electric Supply Company. BESCOM caters to millions of customers in Bangalore. Thanks, Anil, for joining. Kuldeep Sharma is an advisor and renewable enthusiast. I know him for a while now. Represents German International Cooperation, or what we call GIZ for the most part. Thanks, Kuldeep, for joining. And we also have Dr. Killian McKenna from National Renewable Energy Lab. Dr. McKenna is a senior researcher at NREL and works on many projects with USAID and other foundations with Indian utilities for a while now. So welcome all panelists and moderator. Now I'll hand over the session to Reena, and welcome.
Thank you so much, Adarsh, and a warm welcome to all our participants today and our esteemed experts who have joined us for this panel today. So I'm very pleased to be moderating this peer-to-peer India Power series on accelerating growth of rooftop solar in India. So as we all know, India is pursuing an ambitious program for development of renewable energy with an ambitious target of 450 gigawatt to be set up by 2030. And out of which we're very proud to say that we have already achieved about 100 gigawatt milestone of installed renewable energy capacity already. And while renewables have witnessed significant growth over the past decade, the solar power segment has clearly outshone others in terms of growth and uptake. This growth is well reflected in the fact that solar power capacity in India has increased from over 10 megawatt in 2010 to about 38 to 39 gigawatt. That's a steep increase of about 3,600 times in the span of a decade. And although the growth is in 2020 has been hampered a bit by due to COVID crisis, overall solar in India has reached about 36% of the government's target of 100 gigawatt by 2022. And currently accounts for more than around 4% of the country's renewable energy generation mix. And wherein the solar power space, the utility scale projects have driven large scale capacities. However, the share of rooftop solar has also started increasing over the past few years, and driven by a significant decline in the equipment costs and supportive government policies, and these rooftop solar projects are rapidly finding their way into the energy mix of institutional, commercial, and industrial consumers. Residential consumers have, however, been slow to adopt these systems. And niche solutions such as floating and canal-based solar photovoltaics have also emerged as attractive alternatives to ground-based projects. However, the actual growth in this space is only set to happen now as a cost efficiency starts setting in. The market, we already have seen that is experiencing new dynamics with new bids such as solar wind hybrid, solar power-based energy storage, around the clock, peak power supply, and open trade of power have opened up new avenues for innovation. And meanwhile, the COVID-19 situation and the resultant supply chain issues have underlined the importance of self-reliance. The government has been laying emphasis on local production with under the Nirbhar Bharat Abhiyan and Make in India initiatives. And it has also been taking steps such as the extension of safeguard duties on imported solar cells and modules, promotion of manufacturing linked tenders, and identification of land parcels across major ports to set up production units in order to incentivize the local production. So these issues and challenges pertaining, and there have been issues and challenges pertaining to land constraints, off-takers, risks, payment delays, grid integration of solar power are also being are also being resolved, but at a very slow pace. So in terms of maintaining these power quality, project quality, better asset management, demand management, made possible through data analytics and digitalization of storage, that will be the key for future projects. And with digitalized systems, it should be possible to realize the idea of perceptive maintenance over preventive maintenance, etc. We've also seen that the grid integration of renewable energy has picked up in last couple of years. Standards related renewable energy grid integration will also play a very important role towards grid infrastructure augmentation and its stability. Of course, solar microgrids are also becoming very popular, with demands standardization of domestic solar inverters with grid synchronization and remote isolation features for consumers to distribution level. So with this as a background, and there is more that we have seen in, more evolution we have seen in the sector. Still, despite enormous technical potential and ambitious policy targets that have been set, rooftop solar, PV has not seen large growth in India. And thus, with this session, second edition of this peer-to-peer India Power Series, we aim to uncover the barriers of rooftop solar deployment and what can be done to accelerate the growth of rooftop solar in India. So please join me once again in welcoming our esteemed panelists for today's session once again. And now I would like to request our panelists to please provide insights on the work you have been doing as part of your current portfolio towards accelerating solar rooftop PV in India before we come back to you again for more questions which have come from the audience. So I would like to start with Mr. Anil Dsouza from Bangalore Electricity Supply Company. And over to you, Mr. Dsouza, for your initial introductory remarks.
Good evening and good morning to all of you. Thanks, Reena, for the nice introduction. As you rightly said, the solar rooftop sector is the picking up across the nation, and government has emphasized with means of subsidies and various measures, and the panel rates have been dropping. So it has been a very good improvement in the market, and for BESCOM, wherein these prosumers are coming in, the purchase cost has been reducing also. So therein we are getting a lot of power that is required through solar, and that is how we are moving from a deficit mode of power to the power surplus mode. So this is a very good move for us, and it has enabled many of our people to move into the solar rooftop. And we have recently launched some 30 megawatts for rooftops through some subsidy scheme. It had really, excited many of the consumers, wherein most of them were wanting for more power to be installed, because we had a limiting cap on the maximum capacity of those consumers. So this is a very good move, and I think so this will start accelerating in the coming days with all the price reduction of the solar panels and all. So I feel this is picking up very fast. And with now EVs and all happening, I think so the battery has prices are dropping. I think so the storage will be adding as a plus point, wherein some consumers might go also along with the storage capacity. So that would be changing the dynamics also of the entire market. I think so. It's a very good initiative that's happening, and we see a lot of synergy that's happening in this market. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Thank you, Mr. Dsouza, for your crisp opening remarks and introduction to all the work that is happening in Karnataka with under BESCOM. So I'd like to now invite Abhishek Ranjan from BRPL for his initial remarks and the work you are doing with BRPL for this topic.
Thank you, Reena and NREL. Hope I'm audible.
Yes, very much.
Thank you. So yeah, so rooftop solar has been a kind of savior for the BESCOM, as we know, and we have crossed 100 megawatt mark. Both the BSES, the two companies, basically Yamuna and Rajdhani. We recently crossed 100 megawatt net metered connections here, and we have been championing the cause of this since 2014, when the net metering regulation came in by the Regulatory Commission here in Delhi, and it's now 7th year in run. In 2018, we started with a solar city initiative, wherein we focused mainly on the residential consumer, which has been a thumping success. And now the awareness is there amongst the people. So we are getting to know what are the nitties and gritties, what are the challenges which we are overcoming. As far as transparency in sharing of information is concerned, we have a organized website, and now we are working on an app also. So in a nutshell, the CFA scheme of the Government of India, MNRE, together with the generation-based incentive scheme of the Government of Delhi, is helping a lot, especially the proliferation of rooftop solar in the residential sector. As far as C&I, that is commercial, industrial, and institutional sector is concerned, there is a price driver for them, because the shelf rate or the rate of the slab, the tariff, retail tariff is higher. It makes sense for them to go solar, and they're going in a very fast way. Even some kind of statistic, 51% by numbers is accounted for by residential consumers, but in terms of capacity, they account for about 22%. So balance 70 or 80% is from the mainly institutional. So in Delhi area, mainly the colleges, schools, MCD schools or municipal schools, the government schools, private schools as well, colleges, institutions, educational as well as non-educational, malls, hospitals, they are going very, very big in solar. And now the helping models like group net metering and virtual metering is also helping proliferation. So that's what my limited comment in the beginning, and we'll go along as we process. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Abhishek. I would like to request Mr. Kuldeep Sharma to please, from GIZ, to please tell us about the work that GIZs has undertaken for India for this topic.
Thanks, Reena, and I will pick up from where Abhishek sir had just left. So the net metering regulations and also the limitations in terms of regulatory procedures. So GIZ back in 2016-17, we started our work in terms of improving the framework conditions, and basically first with the regulations, then secondly with the policy framework. There have been several issues which we had identified back in 2017, and several projects we have done. And some issues I can name here is regulatory hurdles, lack of consumer awareness, then making this matchmaking between consumer and the installer, supporting DISCOMs with capacity building, because DISCOMs are the key here. As Abhishek sir has rightly highlighted, DISCOMs are the key here if we have to have solar rooftop development in the country. The CFA scheme by the ministry, first phase was a good success, but second phase we are seeing even better with DISCOMs coming in as the nodal point here and doing really great. GIZ has been supporting 11 states on several of these topics: capacity building, consumer awareness, demand aggregation, demonstration projects, making this hand-holding support with the DISCOMs to proliferate rooftop PV in their distribution area, also supporting them with the grid integration studies if they are facing some issues in the distribution network. However, we see one issue is that some states are really far ahead. For example, Delhi, Gujarat, I would name. Some states are doing great: Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, Rajasthan, MP. But there are other states which are not doing that great, and we have to really work on those issues. What are the challenges that these states are facing? And key question here is, once the CFA scheme ends at the end of next year, what is there for the residential consumers? And as Abhishek sir highlighted, for the commercial and industrial consumers, the rate is the real driver. However, the framework conditions, still they need much more improvement in some of these states. So these are some of the topics that we still see needs a lot of working. I would stop here and we'll continue in the questions.
Thank you so much, Kuldeep, for the initial introduction and the work you're doing for India. And now I would like to move to Dr. Killian McKenna from NREL to please update us on the research work that you have undertaken for other in US or other countries and for India. And before I, Ms. Dr. Killian starts, I would request the participants to please keep posting your questions in the chat box. We already have around 20 to 30 questions with us, which participants have shared, which I'll be, coming back to the panelists with. And but if you have any questions while we go along the discussion, please post it in the chat. So over to you, Dr. Killian.
Thanks, Reena. Thanks for a really great introduction that set the context for this discussion today. And also thank you to all of the really great and esteemed panelists who are really at the forefront of this challenge of how do we integrate and how do we accelerate rooftop adoption in India. I think India has really set the bar high in setting ambitious targets for renewable energy, that a lot of other countries around the world are saying, wow, they're really trying to push things very far. Like if you look at the target from 2015 to 2022, the target for rooftop solar was requiring over a 50-fold increase in rooftops. From the beginning of 2020, we've seen a 5-fold increase, which a lot of other countries would be very happy to see in rooftop solar. So they're really ambitious targets, which require, ambitious challenges to be overcome. I think one of the things you're hearing a lot today, and you will hear a lot, is the retail market. And how do we financially motivate customers to adopt rooftop solar? And that is something you will see the world over, that no one has figured out the retail market for rooftop solar yet. You'll see utilities in the US who started off with net energy metering, and a lot of affluent and wealthy customers were able to install rooftop and make some good money out of it and get a return on their investment. But now they're moving away from that. They're starting to move to feed-in tariffs or demand charges or zero energy export. And even those solutions aren't perfect. Like this decoupling that we have of the retail and wholesale market creates huge challenges for rooftop solar. Another thing that we're looking at a lot more in NREL is this idea of energy justice, which we're trying to figure out, how do we get rooftop solar available to all customers, not just those who can afford it under net energy metering schemes. So that's something I think maybe we'll get ESCOs kind of discussed here. It's kind of energy service providers. How could BESCOMs provide rooftop solar to customers, and what part might they play in it? I think India has this huge opportunity to leapfrog a lot of other countries in terms of the retail market design, in terms of the interconnection standards that apply to rooftop solar. And really, we've seen that ambition from India and the renewable energy targets that are being set. There's a lot of other parts apart from the market that need to happen for rooftop solar to be successful. One is definitely the information barrier, making sure that customers are educated in rooftop solar and they have the resources available. Another is making sure that utilities have all of the tools in their distribution planning and operation to deal with high penetration solar, because it is a paradigm change for how utilities operate. And at NREL, we're trying to look at all of these different challenges because there are many, and we're trying to find perfect solutions, and we haven't found them out there. We're still searching. So I think it's a really interesting space to be in. It's an interesting problem. And I think everyone around the world is trying to figure out this problem. But yeah, we've got an excellent panel here today, and really interested to see what people's thoughts are, what ideas we can come up with here today. I'll hand it back to you, Reena.
Thank you so much, Dr. Killian, for that. I'll come back to you to know more about the work you are doing in the grid, greening the grid space. Before that, I would like to now request, go back to our panelist, Mr. Anil Dsouza. So, Mr. Dsouza would like to know more about the feeder solarization work that BESCOM has undertaken, and the solar pumps you are, bridging with the grid, the integration of that with the grid. How, what is the program all about, and what kind of benefits are you looking forward to reaping from this program? And also, what are the plans of BESCOM in the next 5 years to support the acceleration of the rooftop in the residential sector? You muted, Mr. Dsouza. We can't hear you.
Yeah, sorry. It's an ambitious project of feeder solarization, which BESCOM has taken up, wherein mainly our focus is on the irrigation pump sets feeders, which are supplying power to the irrigation pumps. As we all know, this is a subsidized scheme wherein it is adding too much of revenue burden and creating holes in the revenues of all the DISCOMs across the nation. So in this regard, a ambitious project of Surya Raita, what we call Surya Raita. Surya stands for sun and Raita stands for the farmer. So that's how it's named as Surya Raita scheme, wherein we had a unique scheme wherein all the farmers of that area, BESCOM and a cooperative society was formed. So a group of three set of people joined together to form a scheme wherein, including a profit sharing mechanism was built in, so that the farmer is also benefited by the surplus power that is pumped back into the grid. So riding on the success of this scheme, we have seriously now looked at, trying to solarize much of the feeders that are there, which are predominantly trying to feed this irrigation pumps. So this is a kind of a subsidized scheme wherein, government subsidy of, or a RESCO model is being planned about, so that, we can try to reduce the total burden that is coming onto the entire grid. So that is the main thing that is focused using the feeder solarization. Well, how does this help our solar rooftop? So when you are trying to do this, we have plus some additional scheme called as, we had kept some district and taluk level targets of some 10 megawatts and all. So what we have done, this mainly has helped, when you are allotted some few megawatts to the particular taluk region, the local vendor is getting help, who is trying to supply these solar panels, and plus the vendor by himself is creating some awareness across the consumers who can trying to promote. So wherein, it is creating a multiple chain reaction wherein the consumer, the vendors and utility, all of these are, in a very benefited position. And also what has happened, this has trying to create in, a lot of more vendors coming in and thereby reducing the cost of the solar panels. So this has creating much more advantage to the consumers, wherein, many people are started moving into this solarization of the rooftops. In addition, what we have done, we have a complete end-to-end web portal wherein all the details of how a consumer can avail this and how the seniority is fixed, including till the charging of that PPA agreement is signed, is to the web portal. So this has completely created transparency to the consumer, and they are very happy with this entire scheme. And that's how the our popularization of the scheme has helped. And we are trying to target in all the areas. Even as you look at, the Karnataka has a very diverse kind of a environment. If you look at the north of Karnataka, it's, hardly scantily raining, and we have solar all the while. Whereas, if you come to the Malnad region and all, like 3 to 6 months, they don't even see proper sunlight. In spite of all this, we are, moving progressively in trying to meet the targets, and a huge response, and people actively participating and moving on to their solar rooftop has been seen. So this is a very good move that we are, step we have taken. And probably we also did a small pilot wherein a LIDAR program was done. The entire Bangalore region solar, the roofs of the entire Bangalore city was captured in the LIDAR program, and tried to give all the consumers the possible potential on their roof. and what is the exact area and what is the benefit they can. So a lot of schemes have been developed and try to communicate to the consumers, and now really consumers are wanting more, and this is where we are really evaluating how should be our next steps in trying to have the grid level balancing when this all solar is coming in. So this is the program that we have taken up in BESCOM.
Thank you, Dsouza. So it gives a very holistic picture of the different business models or different schemes which can really support the expansion of solar. So this is a great example for that. So I would like to now move to Mr. Abhishek Ranjan. Going forward, taking from what Mr. Dsouza has said, now, what do you think is the role of that you see of rooftop solar for the future utility models going forward? And also would like to know more about the major distribution upgrade that was carried out to connect the 100 plus megawatt rooftop solar that you have achieved in BSES area. Over to you.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Reena. So taking forward from Mr. Anil, I'm very glad to know about the solarization of the feeders and the pumps, solar pumps thing. In Delhi also, we have started that under Kusum C, and we have and these are not solar feeder solarization, it's about pump solarization, different pump, individual pumps. So the lines over here, 11 kV lines are there, and each of the 11 kV lines, you have a dedicated 25 kVA transformer, which is feeding to one single pump. That's how the line and the network goes here. We did that on a sample basis, 2 such pumps, one each of 7.5 HP, another of 5.5 HP here in Delhi area, and we have a potential of about 10,000 such connections. So that is another area we are working on. Second is, you talk about what is the future of the distributed energy resources like rooftop solar in the future utility models. I feel that we are at a cusp of changing or transition from a DISCOM's role to a DSO role. And this is evident from the upcoming, we feel that amendment to the Electricity Act, the Federal Act of the Government of India, also the separation of carriage and content, and introduction of competition in retail tariff. So what we see is, from a pure play distributed network operator that we are today, apart from that, the business function, which is giving of connection, etc. And third is the system operation function. So this connection giving and business function might be hived off, limited only to the provider of last resort, that is end consumers, like low income, low yield consumers. Balanced consumers might be migrating to other providers. It makes a lot of sense for utilities of today in India to invest in such distributed energy resources like rooftop solar, which will help them in the remaining 2 functions. One is the distributed system operation, because the distributed system is now going to be more agile, more active, and multi-directional energy flow is envisaged, as we all know, instead of a unidirectional flow today, as on date. So in order to have a control of your system or management of your system, you need to have a DER deployment as well as DER operational control. Now, depending upon the varying degree of the operational and the deployment control, you may be from a distributed network operator pure play, that is wires only, to a pure play energy systems platform operator, wherein you are deploying DERs as well as you are dispatching DERs. So dispatching of DER today is not there in India, as Kuldeep was talking about amendments to the grid code, which we are working on. So I see DER playing a very important role. Instead of considering rooftop solar as a competitor or a vicious cycle of death, etc., etc., let us change the game in favor of the DSOs and let the DSOs, own, operate through CAPEX model, RESCO model, and make these customers their equal partners or stakeholders. That's what the future I see in near future. And also the Federal Ministry of Government of India is totally focused on customer-centric and customer satisfaction, customer right to electricity. Now, the next is, we had a technical study of grid integration study part 1 done by GIZ in 2017, where we came out with some numbers as to how much solar rooftop can be integrated without any thermal upgrade of the transmission or distribution system. Okay, so as it is, whatever it is, how much you can do. We came out with some number as a function of the rated capacity of the distribution transformer, and very happy to state now we are in 4th year and we adhere to that. And we found that there is no problem or technical glitch in either the system stability or the over voltages, reactive power, and also the power quality, barring the dawn and the dusk period where the harmonic content goes up. There is some other reason. Third harmonic, the odd harmonics basically, during dawn and dusk it goes up. Otherwise, it was totally flawless. Now, in the second RE integration study, which is ongoing with GIC, in fact, in the first only, we talked about a model where if you have a PV port and store, which is another product, you can do an infinite quantum of rooftop solar because it is not getting exported. The moment it is not getting exported, you can put in any number of amount of solar. It's not a problem. It's only when you export it and there is a condition of reverse power flow, the protection schemes of the existing distribution transformers come into play. Okay, so that becomes a challenge, but that becomes a challenge to operate in sense we have to modify that or retrofit that. But otherwise, if you're not exporting it, like with battery systems, and that is why I'm happy that the net metering has now been limited to 500 kilowatt as per the latest government guideline, central government, and they're talking about beyond that you go for net billing. So this is also going to incentivize putting in storage, as you were saying earlier, storage behind the meter coupled with the solar PV, and that is going to help in further proliferation of solar PV. So I'll submit it to you, Reena. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Abhishek. And I would just like to add to what you mentioned about the distribution transformer stability to integrate the solar. We had also, ISGF had also conducted a study of where when we were preparing the energy storage roadmap for India, and we did the modeling with some feeders, and we found that the transformers have the capacity to go up to even 50 to 80%. With the proliferations and stuff. So I think that issue and the challenge which everyone was envisaging at that time of integration issues with the existing capacity of the network, I think that we have addressed with all the studies that results that have come out. So I think going forward, that should not be a hindrance in acceptance or integration of rooftop into the grid. So now I'd like to move to Mr. Kuldeep Sharma, and would like to first of all congratulate you and Abhishek for the microgrid that you just mentioned. That has been the very first one that has been set up. So would like to also know one, of course, that what is the future plan? Are you planning to have more such models in place in India? And also, with GIZ, what are the further support you are, or what are the challenges you mentioned that there's some states which are ahead, but some states are lacking. So what do you think are the reasons of the other states not being able to catch up as much as the states which are leading?
First of all, thank you, Reena. And I would like to thank Abhishek ji because this is because of his support that we have been able to do such a nice project of microgrids, basically combining solar and storage and helping the distribution system. So our plan on similar microgrids, it's rather not our plan, it's the plan by BSES, Rajdhani. They are going ahead with similar systems in the distribution network. They have identified several overloaded feeders, and they are going ahead with this battery storage systems, where they are putting in these distributed storage systems within the transformer, so that they can manage the peak load and they can reduce the losses and perform or operate the system more efficiently. This is already going on, and this is really great by BRPL. Similar initiatives we are also taking up with other states. So Gujarat is also one state where there is massive proliferation of solar rooftop PV systems. In last 2 years, now they have installed 250,000 solar rooftop systems, and these are more or less concentrated in 4 large cities: Ahmedabad, Vadodara, Surat, and Rajkot. And Vadodara has the highest number of solar rooftop PV systems, and within the boundaries of the city, they are now starting to see several incidents in terms of grid connectivity. They are seeing some over voltages. They are seeing some other different challenges where there are some challenges in terms of feeder loading. So as GIZ, we are now trying to work with the state of Gujarat on basically solving these challenges. These are the challenges which are faced by the states which are already reaching out to a level where there is enough rooftop available in their distribution network. Yeah. In terms of the battery storage and the way forward that we are taking now, so we are moving ahead in our discussions with the other states as well, to do this policy advocacy to do similar systems. And we see a great potential for the states which are, let's say, our Himalayan states, Himachal Pradesh, Uttarakhand, Jammu and Kashmir, Ladakh. So there is a great potential available. So rooftop PV combined with the battery storage facility. So these can also be the hybrid systems. But the problem here is that these systems become a little bit out of reach of the consumer. So there is a need for a little bit of viability gap funding. This funding can come in from the state government as a subsidy on the storage side for the low income category of residential consumers. So this is also that we are now taking forward. Coming to the states that we see why some states are lacking and why some states are so much ahead in the game. We see it in a way that this is more about the political willingness. So whenever there is an approach, let's say a top-down approach, if the energy minister of the state and the chief minister of the state, they have this vision, to set up solar or promote solar rooftop in their particular states, then we are seeing really good developments. And also, this is not just one reason. Secondly, there is also utility-driven initiatives, like, for example, BESCOM, for example, BRPL, for example, Discoms in Kerala, Discoms in MP. They are on their own leading these initiatives for promotion of solar rooftop PV. And solar rooftop PV, for a large part, was being treated as some enemy by the utilities. Rather, the Discoms who are doing great, they are treating it as a friend. This is basically helping them in reducing the subsidy burdens. Wherever you have more and more residential consumers, promote rooftop PV. This is the message, and this is also one of the strong driving factors that these Discoms are now promoting the rooftop PV. Thirdly, that we see is large initiatives on consumer awareness and demand aggregation. As we already know that education or the awareness within the consumer groups on adoption of solar, this is lacking. Wherever the states are doing massive awareness programs, we are seeing the numbers, we are seeing the capacities coming up, consumers are adopting. So these three are the main factors that we see. Some states are doing great and some states are a little bit lacking. Yeah. So similar programs like political willingness, initiatives from the state government, initiatives, utility-led initiatives in the states, or wherever, let's say in the Himalaya region states, where normal rooftop PV is basically not feasible for them. So distributed PV along with some small storage solutions. So these kind of solutions have to be developed. So this is our understanding of the sectors as GIZ. And with our current projects, and also we have a new project coming up, which we are just starting. So we'll continue to support states. And also with KfW, German Development Bank, they have the financing available. So we are also trying to bring this financing to the consumer and industrial category consumers, because these are the consumers who are lacking on the financing part. They do not have enough liquidity available with them. So this is also that we are taking up. Yeah. So I would like to submit this to you, and yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kuldeep. And I totally agree. So, like, a lot of things matter, the policy push and, from the government, as well as having some very innovative models have to be in place to encourage the customers to go for having solar rooftop. Like right now, I think there is a lot of confusion as to if I want to have this installed, what is the way forward? So it should be as simple as going to a store and pick it up, and it should be a play and plug and play kind of a system. If that can be brought into place, that will really support further acceleration. So now I'd like to go to Dr. Killian, and would like to know more from you about the study research results of the greening the grid that for India that you have undertaken, and apart from that, the other studies, and what do you think can support in terms of bringing more stability to the grid with this huge injection of integration of solar with the Indian grid?
Yeah, Reena, great question. And I think what you've heard from the panelists in this go around has really been fascinating, because you hear people thinking of solar as a resource rather than something that needs to be accommodated. Like, I think you've heard some really interesting stuff in terms of what BESCOM have done with their LiDAR study in terms of looking at the solar asset on every single roof, and and alerting customers, here's the potential that you have. In terms of what Abhishek was saying, in terms of looking at DR, distributed energy resources, as an asset, how can a utility use those? And then what Kuldeep was saying, I'm trying to work out financing for customers and working out some of the technical challenges. Like, if you think of solar rooftop at its most basic, it is a cheap source of energy that you can almost place anywhere on your distribution network. If you told a distribution system operator they had that at their hands and they could do anything they want with it, that it's a huge resource from that perspective. From what we've been doing with the Greening the Grid program, like, we have seen that rooftop can play a huge role in India, that it can actually help with power quality, it can help decrease costs. That there's very high penetrations of rooftop that can be accommodated in most feeders. And it's only when you get to extremely high penetrations that you start to run into technical problems. Usually voltages first, asset loading thereafter. There are concerns of protection, but not anything that can't be overcome. So I think, like, if you look at the potential to use solar as an alternate to, say, network upgrades, or as an alternate to getting power from the bulk system, the role that DSOs have to play in that is really interesting. So that's taking it beyond the idea of customers are just installing rooftop solar, but DSOs have the opportunity to own assets and use those as an alternate to, say, transformer upgrades or line upgrades. Storage is a really interesting kind of asset that is also coming into play here, and that can help manage variability. It can help kind of level this net load problem that customers or utilities can start to run into. But I also think there's a huge question on who should be owning DER storage, and that's conversations that we've definitely been having with utilities in India and also with utilities in the US. Like, does it make most sense for storage to be sited behind the meter, or should it really be a front of the meter utility asset, especially with economies of scale and the flexibility of operation? And when you start to introduce DR storage for customers in order to facilitate solar, then the operation of storage is really a function of the retail tariffs, right? Whether they're time of use or demand charges, and those can sometimes lead to kind of suboptimal conditions. So trying to come up with a retail market structure and a regulatory structure that allows, whether it's energy service companies or BSESCOMs, are taking a greater role in owning DER assets and being able to kind of own and dispatch them and set them as needed, that's something that really needs to happen. Another thing that we've been looking at from the NREL side, or interconnection standards. So when we talk about solar, you're not just talking about power in terms of what that system can provide. It can also provide say, frequency response. It can also provide capacity response in terms of actually decreasing from your maximum power point if you need kind of downward capacity. And then voltage regulation is something that we've been looking at as well. Inverters in the US are increasingly being mandated to provide voltage response in terms of volt VAR activation. And utilities are mandating that, and all of the standards for interconnection applications require that inverters have this capability. But it does present a challenge, but also an opportunity to utilities in terms of activating that. So some of our studies that we've done with India BESCOMs have actually looked at round-the-clock operation of volt VAR, which can actually help with end-of-line voltage regulation, which is not something that we currently see being done in the US because we haven't figured out a market for it. But this idea of looking at ancillary services from distributed energy resources on the distribution network is a huge opportunity. And it's one that we haven't seen US utilities on the research that we do here as well figure out either. But this idea of looking at DER as an asset is the future thinking, right? It's the way that we're going to achieve very high penetrations. It's the way that we might achieve energy justice for customers who can't afford solar. So I'm really glad to hear all of the innovative things being talked about in this panel by the BESCOMs and by GIZ, because it's a really important step change or paradigm in terms of how we think of what is the role of distribution companies. So yeah, interested in another go around and really looking forward to what the rest of the panelists have to say.
Thank you so much, and I totally agree to what you're saying regarding the DER resources playing a key role in management of the grid in future. So I would like to now request, going through the questions shared by our participants. I would like to go back to Mr. Abhishek Ranjan to pose him a couple of questions. First, to start with, we like to know more about the pricing methods for solar rooftop that have been adopted or that should be adopted. And also one more question for you is that can we get growth of rooftop without subsidy in future?
Sure. Question number one was about the pricing part. So pricing is being discovered. I mean, there are RFPs of the tenders being floated. Now, if you break down the cost, panels, inverters, balance of plant, and EPC. So panels form the majority of the cost of the plant. Now, if you ask me that rooftop solar versus utility scale definitely will be cheaper compared to the rooftop solar because of limited size in the scale. The last solar tender that we had in Delhi, the phase 2 tender, we discovered a price of 37 rupees per watt peak without subsidy. And this was up to, I think, 100 kilowatt, up to 100 kilowatt sizing. I mean, starting from 1 kilowatt to 100 kilowatt, a uniform price was there. Now, the MNRE is offering subsidy up to 3 kilowatt of 40%, and 3 to 7 is 20%. Beyond 10 kilowatt, it is not offering subsidy. And for group housing societies, it is flat 20% up to 500 kilowatt. So in that sense, currently in the current tender, which is now expiring on 3rd of October, that is next month, it is, I think, first 3 kilowatt per kilowatt, I think it is about 26,000 rupee per kilowatt peak in terms of capex model, when a consumer pays upfront for this, either through his own kitty or maybe through loan or something, whatever. It is pure play, total cost. I mean, switch on the complete solar, complete thing, complete. It's not about only the equipment, it's complete thing. If you talk about, there is another thing called tariff, RESCO third-party tariff. So tariff which was quoted in Delhi was 3 rupees 9 paise per unit, flat tariff for 25 years. And that was 2 years back. But today, if you ask these vendors, and this was after subsidy. So subsidy is considering the fact that whatever the capex cost discovered, and basis that the subsidy was considered. So 3 rupees 9 paise per unit was up to 100 kilowatt. And beyond that, it was about 3 rupees 50 paise or something, I'm not sure exactly. And a third category was 3 rupees 91 paise, that is near to 4 as a raised structure. So up to 9 feet structure or 3 meter structure. Now, these tariffs, which I'm talking about right now, these are with the subsidy part. Once the subsidy goes away, in fact, even today without subsidy, C&I consumer, institutional consumers are going ahead with the solar, okay, without subsidy also. So if you talk about it, anywhere between 40 to 42 rupees per watt peak, anybody is getting a decent system today. It's a rooftop solar system with a maybe up to 3 feet from the height, a traditional system. And this is not a very exhaustive cost or costly affair. And that's how I see, if you see the contribution of subsidized system in the total 100 megawatt peak that we have added so far, it's hardly maybe about 20 or 22 megawatt. Balance itself is institutional, commercial, and industrial, and those big residential consumers who are not worried about the subsidy. So this may vary from town to town, from city to city. But what I feel is, even when the subsidy is withdrawn, solar proliferation will continue. And what we have prepared for that eventuality is these fragmented up to 10 kilowatt systems. These are the ones who would be in the need of the subsidy, or these are the ones who would need some kind of support. Retail loan is hard to come. Even IREDA, as on date, they have not been able to come out with a residential loan system. Okay. So what we have thought of is, and we have submitted to Honorable Commission, why don't we BESCOMs become the aggregator of these all fragmented rooftop solar, convert them into an OPEX scheme, let a vendor quote a price or tariff to us, which is approved by the Commission, and we buy it complete gross metered. And we provide the net metered benefit to these consumers. It's a kind of hybrid scheme. So even if the subsidy goes away, this model will ensure that this section of the society which is impacted by this withdrawal of subsidy also remains to be solarized. So what I feel in a nutshell is, even after next year, if government decides to withdraw completely the subsidy, we won't see any vacuum, provided this scheme is approved by the Honorable Commission. Over to you, Reena.
Thank you so much. That was quite an elaborate response to the question. And I would also like to add that going forward with the prices coming down, I think the building owners actually don't need a subsidy per se, but government should focus their grants more on and going to the BESCOM rather for strengthening of the infrastructure to be able to manage the extra solar rooftop that will be coming into the system. So that will rather help support the BESCOM manage it in a better way. And subsidy going forward to the customer may not be required because the prices anyways are coming down. I totally agree on that. So we have a question here in which one of the audience member has posed, and I think I have two questions for Kuldeep. So maybe I'll start with the first one. First question coming to you is, what is the scope for the government and municipal buildings for adoption of the rooftop solar, as per your and now that CFA for the category has been suspended?
Yes, subsidies for this category was suspended long back. This is an interesting topic, solarization of the government buildings. We keep hearing that government of India minister is asking. Now recently, President Government of India, he said, why are we not doing solarization of government buildings? However, here the thing is, MNRE can only just provide some suggestions. They cannot drive all the states and all the municipal corporations to put solar on the government buildings. However, a business case is there with the RESCO model. Like an installer can come in with the RESCO model and provide the solar rooftop systems to the government buildings. But this requires a lot of handholding support with these owners of these government buildings. Let's say, let's talk about city of Gandhinagar. They have solarized almost all of the government buildings. Some buildings are still remaining to be solarized, but all of this has been done in the CapEx model. Because previously the RESCO model was not allowed in the state of Gujarat for the solarization. So for the solarization, if you can allow the RESCO model, and then it is easier for the departments to make a decision, because whenever there is a financial decision to be made by the government department, the things just get stuck. Yeah, this is the main hurdle. And doing the feasibility study for the building and doing the preparing basically a DPR, this support has to come in from someone. And GIZ as a development corporation, we are keen to work on this. And in one of our latest initiative for the solar cities, so we are just going to start work in Gandhinagar, Dwarka, then Amritsar in Punjab, and Ayodhya in Uttar Pradesh. So these cities we are trying to convert to 100% RE. And solarization of government buildings is one of the main topics that we will cover under this initiative. So, but at the end, the financial decision, when it comes to the department, the things just get stuck. So if RESCO model can be allowed and then they can move ahead, so this can be, this is possible then.
Thank you for answering that question, Kuldeep. And one question, as you mentioned, regarding about the northeastern states in the Himachal area. So one of our audience member would like to know about the uptake of solar injection in the grid in the northeast area, and what do you think in terms of cost effectiveness and viability in that area? What's your opinion about that?
Exactly. So this is see, the for the Himalayan states and the northeastern states, we have to see the demand side and the supply side. So for the demand side, we have to have the consumers who are willing to put up solar, and then the solarization or the solar initiatives, they are supposed to be supported from the political level. So political willingness has to be there. Whenever we talk to these states, they will say, oh, we have enough hydros. So for example, Himachal and Jammu Kashmir, they'll say, we have enough hydro. Why do we have to go ahead and ask our consumers to put rooftop solar? So that narrative has to change, firstly. Secondly, the consumers, they have to be made aware about, they have to be educated about the subsidy schemes. Thirdly, the supply chain. There are not enough installers available within these regions. These are, you would find pockets or villages or areas where there is hardly any installer available. So for example, Dehradun, if you have to get an installation done in any of the hilly region, the material has to move in first from Delhi to Dehradun, and then some installer who is active in Dehradun, he will then do the installation and go into the hilly region. And with these smaller system sizes, 3 kilowatt, 5 kilowatt, it hardly goes up to 10 kilowatt. Yeah, the margins are so less, these installers, they just cannot make any money, or they have to quote higher prices. And once you quote higher prices, the interest from the consumer just goes away. So supply chain promotion and creation of the supply chain within the hilly regions is also one thing that has to be developed. And specifically for the residential consumers, when you talk to these BESCOMs and the nodal agencies, they say, oh, in the first phase of the CFA scheme, we had 70% subsidy available from the ministry. And then there was some states who were also providing their state subsidy up to 20%. So 70 plus 20, the consumer was getting a system which is basically 90% subsidized. And then whatever rate the installer is quoting, let's say he's also including his transportation cost, logistics cost, and he's also including his margin, still the system was feasible for them. But with the start of the phase 2 of the CFA scheme, the subsidy which is now applicable up to 3 kilowatt, it is 40%. So when we started the discussions with these states, why are you not going ahead with the phase 2 scheme, and why are you taking a step back from this? They are saying, how do we go to our consumers and how do we convince them that please go for solar when we only have 40% subsidy? We need more subsidy for these states. And for one, the logic is also valid because of the lack of supply chain available. The system is costing much more. So as Abhishek said, we have 37 rupees per watt peak as the cost. But same cost for the similar system in the hilly regions may go even up to 50 rupees per watt peak or even beyond. So more subsidy and more government support is needed in these northeastern states.
Thank you, Kuldeep. That was an absolutely wonderful response. And I think we had the discussions were great, and we have come out with a lot of different innovative options that which are already being experimented in different parts of India or the world. And we going forward, we will be able to go through the obstacles can be overcome, and we can support the acceleration of solar rooftop systems. So I would like to close this wonderful session today with just summarizing the points that we have discussed today. That primarily in our view, that obstacle in offtake of the rooftop systems is due to the lack of awareness among customers. Having the right policies in place is a key to success, and having the commoditized solar rooftop systems availability is another way forward. And testing and certification of the installers so that it's readily available for customers who are willing to have the solar rooftop in place. And the government subsidies should be more directed towards BESCOMs and instead of customers going forward. We can also look at a huge intake of solar rooftop by promoting peer-to-peer trading, which has been experimented already in India in 2 places, and going forward many utilities are keen to take it up. And the government, some of the governments are mandating solar rooftop on the buildings of with minimum plot size of 500 square yards. So that is another way to mandatorily have solar in place with the larger establishments. And both rooftop solar and electric vehicles are typically connected to the lower voltage grid. So going forward, the AC charging points of EVs also put up in the new buildings may be equipped with vehicle to grid functionalities, and that will also help store the solar generation in the EV batteries when local consumption is less than solar generation, avoiding the curtailment. So these are different innovative policy related and innovative solutions that need to be tried and experimented and taken up so that we can support the acceleration of solar rooftop into the grid, and help support the government with the ambitious target that they have put forward. So thank you once again to all our esteemed panelists for your time and this wonderful session today. And with that, I would like to now hand over to Adarsh to please give your closing and tell us the way forward for the series.
Thanks a lot. It was such a quick 1 hour. Appreciate all your time. There is a link that Isabel has put on the chat. That's where you can find update on future such sessions as we had today. Would like to have you all join in, learn and share your knowledge at the same time. It'll be a community that we are growing here. Thank you. With that, we can put a poll, Isabel, if it's okay with you. There are fewer attendees. There's a poll question that must have shown up on your screen. If you all can just answer that poll, it would be good to know what you all think about it in the simplest. So spend a second there, that'll be great. Other than that, thank you all. Let's meet again in the next peer-to-peer session.
Thank you so much for having us, and thank you everyone. You have a great day and a great evening. Please take care.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you everyone.
Good night, everybody.
Thanks so much, everyone.